friends, it is Natalie, and today I am bringing you the biggest book haul I have ever done, and I'm a little nervous because it's like 75 books. Let's take a look at these piles.
That is a lot of books to get through.
See what I mean? A lot. So no, I did not go on a book buying spree. These were Christmas gifts. This was an accumulation of a lot of book of the month and book box subscription books that I've had for quite a while that have just accumulated over the last time I did a book haul. So I'm going to try to get all these books done in one video by showing the book and give you a very brief synopsis and moving on, because I don't want this to be incredibly long. So let's do it. Oasis is a young adult book about a girl who spends some time in the desert with her father, who's an archaeologist, and her and some friends get lost until they walk into some kind of supernatural oasis. And it's like really cool at first, but then it seems like not a good place. It could have some crazy, scary things going on, and that's all I know about it. Things that should stay buried. Basically, the zodiac gods, I guess, come back and are terrorizing humans, and we have a main character who is a sprinter and calls on a certain other god to kind of help them, and it's just a crazy madness, and hopefully everybody will be okay. Cinderella is dead. There's a main character named Sophia who is having to go to some ball so that somebody can pick her out as their wife, and she runs away because she wants to marry her best friend Aaron, and somehow she wanders into Cinderella's mausoleum and meets the last descendant of Cinderella, and they work together to bring the king down. I don't know, sounds good. The Love Curse of Melody McIntyre. She's an actress, and supposedly every time she does a play, she falls in love with the lead, and then it all ends in disaster. And she's like basically said, I'm not going to let love bother me and get involved in that when I'm performing. But then there's a new character that comes forth, and she's always tried to fall in love on set, but for the first time she's trying not to fall in love. So I guess we can kind of see where this is going. This is an adult mystery thriller, The Lies We Told. Beth is really concerned because her daughter has very disturbing behavior. Her name is Hannah, and she basically lacks emotion. And then on the other token, there's a guy named Luke who comes from the perfect family, and he disappears, and his girlfriend Clara is looking for him. And I guess she finds there's some connection between Luke and Hannah, and hopefully we'll find out what it is, and hopefully we'll find Luke. Next we have Dive Smack. I believe this is a young adult. It's about a guy named Theo who he remembers lighting a match and catching his house on fire, and his mom died and his dad ended up on a really dark path, and he only remembers lighting the match. I guess he doesn't really know why he set his house on fire, and he's like in his last year of high school, and things are looking good for his future until they're like assigned some family project where he has to like dig into his family's past, and I guess that's gonna turn up some creepy stuff. This also is an adult mystery thriller, Pretty Little Wife. We have a main character named Layla who lives in an idyllic college town, but a student has gone missing, a teacher has gone missing, and her husband has gone missing, and she's trying to, I guess, find the connection. Next we have The Deceivers. This is young adult. We have a main character named Bryn who does not live in the best neighborhood, but she's really good at conning rich people, and then she gets recruited into this elite, prestigious private school, and she doesn't realize that she has been recruited to become a better hustler, to con people even better, because that is what the school teaches. Next we have Other Earth and Other Life. These are the sequels to Other World, I believe. It is a book I have talked about on my channel where it's a virtual reality kind of a thing, and the main character, his best friend, is in a coma, but somehow they put her in this virtual reality game, and not everything is what it seems, and he has to go in and try to save her and figure out what this virtual reality thing is all about. And since I read the first one, I thought it was pretty good. I would read the sequels. Next we have These Violent Delights. Look at that, beautiful sprayed edges there. This is some kind of a Romeo and Juliet retelling, and it's set in Shanghai, and there are two rival gangs, and there's some kind of crazy monster, and we'll see how that affects this Romeo and Juliet story. Next we have Wild Beauty. I believe this is an adult kind of contemporary romance, maybe? So it says there are these women who have tended the grounds of some estate gardens, and if they fall in love too deeply, their lovers always vanish, and then some boy ends up stumbling into their gardens who they end up kind of treating as a lost son, and for some reason they think he might be able to bring their lovers back. That's all I know. Sounds interesting. Next we have Sea Witch. This is also young adult. It is about a girl named Evie who is an outcast because she is a witch, I guess, and also because her best friend Anna drowned maybe like a couple years ago, and then some girl who looks just like Anna shows up into the town, and I guess Evie never really believed that her best friend died, and somehow this is all going to come together with this new girl coming to town, and I don't know where the witch part is going to play in, but we shall see. Next we have the game. This is also young adult. We have this girl named Leah, and at her high school they played this game called The Assassins, but you know, it's all in good fun until the game, I guess, becomes really realistic because people are being killed off in alphabetical order. And it looks like a quick read, so probably be reading this soon. Next we have Escape Room. I am going to read this really quick just because it's very cool the way they've said it. All they need to do is get out. Alyssa, Sky, Milos, and Mint are ready for a night of fun at the escape room. It's simple. Choose their game, get locked in a room, find the clues, solve the puzzles, and escape the room in 60 minutes. Sounds simple enough. But what happens if the game master has no intention of letting them go? And this also looks like a quick read and a fun, scary read. Next we have Lifelike by Jay Kristoff. We have a main character named Eve, and there's so many people like who are after her for some reason, and she gets in some kind of a wreck, and this guy named Ezekiel saves her in her wreck situation. And this Ezekiel claims to know her and be able to tell her secrets about herself that she didn't know, and that's really all I know, but it sounds interesting enough to read, don't you think? Next we have The Silent Sister by Diane Chamberlain, who I'm assuming this is an adult book. I read The Dream Daughter last year. It was so amazing and I wanted to read more from her. And all I know is that there's a main character named Riley, and her sister commits suicide when she's very young, I guess when both of them are very young. And Riley has to go back to the house when her father dies like 20 years later, and she finds evidence that her sister might still be alive. Yep. Next we have Beasts of Extraordinary Circumstance. So in this book there's a character named Waylon who is born in a blizzard, an orphan, so he gets raised by wolves, and supposedly when he comes into people's lives he makes them better in some way, maybe some magic. I don't know. Sounds interesting. Next we have A Song of Wrath and Ruin. We have main characters Malik and Karina. Malik is very poor. He's come to this new town with his sisters to start a new life. There's also a big festival going on, and then his sister, I believe, is kidnapped by some kind of magical being. And then Karina is the daughter of a sultana. I don't know if I'm probably saying that completely wrong. And something happens with her mother, and now she has to kind of make a deal with some other kind of magical force. And somehow all of this is going, these two characters' dilemmas are going to collide in some way. That's all I know. Next we have The Boy from the Woods, and they sum it up really great. They say, a man whose past is shrouded in mystery must find a missing teenage girl before her disappearance brings about disastrous consequences for her community and the world. Next we have When the Sky Fell on Splendor. So supposedly in this town, this local steel mill exploded and just, killed tons of people and just devastated the town itself. And there's this group of kids who like to go around and investigate ghost stories and film it so they can put it on a YouTube channel. And it's all in good fun until they go out to film another video and something crazy comes down from the sky that is going to be life-changing. I don't know what's going to fall from the sky, but it's going to be very important to the story. Next we have Challenger Deep. The main character is Caden, and he's on this ship that is literally traveling to the center of the earth, and that is all I know. Next we have 5 Total Strangers. This is about a girl named Mira who gets into a car with somebody who was like her, sat next to her on a plane, and she needs a ride, and she thinks the other people in the car are all friends, and then she doesn't realize until they're on the road that all of them are strangers. And they all seem to be hiding something super dangerous. So I'm wondering, why did you get in the car without asking more questions? I guess I'll see when I read it. Next we have Crave. This is young adult. I believe Nicole from Girly Girl Bookworm talked about this book, or I'm thinking of somebody else. But I guess it is some kind of Vampire Academy type book, but I've heard this is supposed to be really, really good. I've never read any of I think there are actually books called the Vampire Academy books. Obviously, this is something different, but I think there are a lot of books that have those kind of schools, and I've been told this was the best one to read. I hope that made sense. Next, we have The Poppy War. This is a book that every booktuber who's read it seems to love it. It's some kind of a high fantasy with an Asian influence from what I've told. I don't want to get, know too much, but that's what I've been told, and I hope I like it as much as everybody else. I think it's part of a trilogy, I think. Next we have The Coast to Coast Murders. Basically, this guy's a truck driver, and he's coming home from one of his truck runs, goes to his apartment, falls asleep, wakes up and finds a dead woman floating in his tub, does the right thing, calls the police, and they think that he knows her intimately because at her apartment she has all these pictures and videos of them together as a couple, and what is happening? That's all I know, but doesn't that sound good? Oh, and real quick, because I always forget, if you like this and you would like to see more content, please subscribe, please hit that notification bell because I do not have an upload schedule, and hit like if you are enjoying this video. So next we have Golden State. In this book, we're in some kind of strange alternate society on Earth where the biggest crime ever is to tell a lie. And I believe the main character is a police officer in this alternate society, but that sounds kind of crazy if the biggest crime is telling a lie. I'm assuming that's worse than murder. Next, I have 2 books from the Wayward children's series, and one of these is new, and one of these I already had, but I can't remember which one. If you haven't read any of these books, there's quite a few of them now, but it's basically about children that have opened doorways and gone into magical worlds, and they've come back and they're kind of, not doing so well readjusting. And yeah, one of these is the 3rd one, but I can't remember which one. If you know, tell me in the comments. Next, we have a Golden Fury. This is a young adult fantasy. We have Thea, and her mother are alchemists, and for some reason her mother destroys the Philosopher's Stone, which is supposed to give you immortality and also turn anything into gold that you want. I didn't know about that part. And due to her mother's strange illness and the fact that we're in the French Revolution, she gets sent to England to live with her father, and she starts to learn that the Philosopher's Stone is actually really dangerous, and her mother destroyed it for a reason. And I guess there's tons of people trying to recreate it, something like that. Next, we have The Forbidden Library by Chingo Wexler. I believe this is actually a middle school book about a girl who has to go live with her uncle because her parents die, and he has almost like a library in his house. He has so many books, and she's not allowed to touch any of the books. But then she meets a talking cat. She finds out when she opens the books that she can actually jump into the stories in the books, and I thought that sounded good. Next, we have I'll Never Tell. This is an adult mystery thriller about a girl that was, killed at a summer camp like 20 years ago, and the family members have to come together, the family that owns the camp, and they're not allowed to get the money, I guess, from their inheritance until they figure out what actually happened and who killed this girl 20 years ago. So we shall see. Next, we have The Girl Who Drank the Moon. I believe this is also a middle school book, but it's getting its rounds here on BookTube. So from what I read, it says, every year the people of the protectorate leave a baby as an offering to the witch who lives in the forest to keep her from terrorizing their town. But the witch is actually very kind and gentle. And she shares her home with a wise swamp monster and a perfectly tiny dragon. I'm loving all these characters. They sound adorable. And Zan rescues the children and delivers them to welcoming families on the other side of the forest. And one year, Zan accidentally feeds a baby moonlight, filling the ordinary child with extraordinary magic. And Zan decides she must raise this child, who she calls Luna, as her own, and as Luna's 13th birthday approaches, her magic begins to emerge with unpredictable consequences. So this one has won awards, and even though it's middle school, I think I'm going to enjoy it. Next, we have None Shall Sleep. I believe this is young adult. It's about 2 teenagers. One is actually a serial killer victim survivor, and the other one is like a candidate to be a U.S. Marshal, and they are recruited to interview juvenile killers and kind of figure out why they do what they do. That's all I know, but that sounds pretty interesting. Next, we have The Keeper of Lost Cities. I believe this also might be middle school. At the very most, it's definitely young adult. And supposedly, it's the first in a very long series. There's a 12-year-old, so middle school, Sophie, who is a telepath and has a unique ability to hear the thoughts of everyone around her. Well, that's what a telepath is. And this has made her an outcast from her family, from her town, until she meets this guy named Fitz, I guess, who's also very different, and she finally finds, I guess, other kids like her. I don't want to read too much into it. But next we have The Wonderboy of Whistle Stop. I really enjoyed the movie Fried Green Tomatoes, and this is set in that same world. And the main character's name is Bud, and he was a child in the movie, and I'm assuming the first book, but now he's an adult, and he goes back to this little southern town to kind of learn more about who he is. So I've never read any of these books. Like I said, I've only seen the movie, but I know I want to try. Next, we have The Sound of Stars. Supposedly, like 2 years ago, an alien race killed off 1/3 of the human population, and they have a real problem with our emotions. I guess they don't like that we have them. Music, art, and books are illegal, probably because they cause emotion, and we have 2 main characters who, I guess, do these things, but they do it in a hidden way, and I guess it's about what they do and how they handle the situation. Next, we have Reverie. There's this guy named Kane who is found half dead in a river who has no clue how he got there, and he doesn't have really any memories. And supposedly 3 strangers enter his life and are acting like they know who he is and that they have a history with them, and then somehow they're jumping into other worlds and other dimensions. I'd like to see how that all plays out and what that has to do with him being found in the river half dead. I don't know. Next we have You Bring the Distant Star. This is about a family from India that moves to London, and from what I understand, it's about the children trying to figure out how much of a Western life they want to live and how much of their Indian traditions they want to keep. Next we have The Beautiful. I'm sure this is not the first time you've seen this. All I know is it is set in New Orleans and it's got vampires, which I know that's a lot of books, but that's all I know and I don't want to know anymore. Next we have Pretending to Dance. This is also a Diane Chamberlain. Remember I said I wanted to read more of her books because The Dream Daughter was incredible. So in this we have a main character named Molly, and I guess she has a lot of secrets about her family, and now she's an adult and she lives with her husband and they're trying to adopt a child, and in trying to do, I guess, to figure out if they'd be good parents, they're deep diving into her past and she's terrified of what they might find, and hopefully we'll figure out what it is as well. This book also probably looks familiar. We have Stalking Jack the Ripper. The author, who I cannot say her name, Carrie Maniscalco. I read her Kingdom of the Wicked, which I'm going to show later, and I loved it, and I loved her style of writing, and I know she's written, I think there's Jack the Ripper, and it's a series with other famous people, and yeah, I liked it. I guess she is literally going to be trying to find Jack the Ripper. I hope it's good. Next we have a new Stephen King book. I was wanting to read a Stephen King book as one of my goals last year, and I read 2 of them, and this is The Eyes of the Dragon. And this book has a lot of fantasy and dark magic, and I haven't read, his books that I read before did not have that, so I'm trying to still read Stephen King, but read a different style that he has. Next we have Mexican Gothic. I know you've all probably seen this book before. The main character, who I can't say her name, she gets a frantic letter from her cousin who's a newlywed and tells her to come to, I guess, their Mexican countryside home, and I guess she's gonna find some very scary things happening at this home. Next we have The Night Swim by Megan Golden. And it says that this is a true crime podcast host covering a controversial trial finds herself drawn deep into a small town's dark past and a brutal crime that took place 3 years before. So basically she runs a podcast and this town has asked her to come and help. Next we have The Hive. I'm pretty sure this is young adult. And it's basically, I think it's supposed to be kind of a dystopian where social media has become even crazier than it is now. Next we have Spontaneous. I actually purchased this book because I saw a preview because this is a movie that is coming out. And supposedly this is about a group of students where they one by one start blowing up, like literally blowing up, and nobody knows why. Next we have Soul Swift. This is a young adult high fantasy. So Galia is the girl who is like this vessel who I guess spreads the message, or is the only one, like God talks through her in some way. I don't know if it's a god or the god. I'm not really sure on that one. And then there's also a demon that comes to this land, and I think they're trying to figure out which gods are good and which gods are bad. I might be giving you a bad description, but I think that's sort of what this is supposed to be about. Next we have the Left-Handed Booksellers of London. This is set in another like parallel universe, and it's in 1983. And I guess if you're left-handed, you're a good fighter, but if you're right-handed, then you're very intellectual. And when I say left-handed, I mean like if you're a left-handed bookseller, you're a good fighter. If you're a right-handed bookseller, you're very intellectual. That sounds really strange to me. And supposedly there's a character named Merlin who is searching out and trying to find some old god who led ordinary criminals to kill his mother. I know, sounds really crazy. This one sounds very different. Please let me know if you've heard anything about it. Next we have This Is How I Lied. So supposedly 25 years ago, some girl's dead body was found in a cave, and I guess they interviewed all her friends and her boyfriend, and they can't figure out what happened, and so it's a cold case, and now it's 25 years later, and one of her friends has come back to the town, and she's pregnant, and she's trying to figure out what really happened, because now all of a sudden there's a new clue. That's all I know. Sounds good though. Next we have Only Ashes Remain and When Villains Rise. These are the sequels to Not Even Bones, which is a book I read last year and really enjoyed. And it's about this girl named Nita. She doesn't murder supernatural beings and sell their body parts on the internet. Her mother does that, but she does like dissecting these supernatural people's bodies for, I guess, fun. Until her mother ends up selling her because it turns out she's some kind of a supernatural being, and she ends up in this prison, and she has to use her wits about her and, you know, other people who are jailed to try to figure out a way out. And it was fun and very different, so I cannot wait to dive into the sequels, which once again, I'm not sure which one is the second or third book, but I'll figure it out before I read it. Next we have Layla by Colleen Hoover, and this is supposed to be some kind of supernatural story. It's about a couple named Leeds and Layla, and I guess Layla's in some kind of horrible car accident or some kind of accident. I don't know if it's a car. Some kind of accident that leaves her badly hurt and acting weird, and Leeds decides to take her to the bed and breakfast where they met, and then supernatural things start happening. And that's all I know, but it's enough to know that it sounds interesting. Next we have Middle Game by Shannon McGuire. I know most of you have seen this book before. I've heard this book is very different. It's supposed to be about a set of twins that are created in a lab, and then somehow they have godlike powers or something. Now we have The Other Side of the Sky. This is young adult. So there's a character named Prince North who is a prince of this city that is up in the sky, I guess like a cloud. And Nim is the living goddess who lives down on the ground, and somehow their worlds are going to collide. Next we have People Like Her. I believe this is an adult thriller, and our main character is named Emmy, and I guess she has a huge social media following until one of her subscribers or fans or whatever starts stalking her. So it sounds like it could be a crazy ride. Now we have Darling Rose Gold. From what I understand, the main character is, as a child, her mother makes her sick. Of course, she doesn't know that's why she's sick, but her mother makes her sick. And now she's a grown-up, and somehow she's able to visit her mother or have her mother come stay with her, and she wants to exact her revenge on what her mother put her through. So also sounds like a crazy ride. Now we have Clown in the Cornfield. I put this on my wish list because this just sounded fun. Our main character is Quinn. Her and her father moved to the small town where their mascot is a clown. And then I guess a clown starts going around and killing people. So definitely a horror novel, and I don't think it's going to be too in-depth. It's basically a clown going around killing people, I think. Yeah, I bit the bullet and bought this book because, my goodness, everybody's talking about it. It is Sarah J. Maas's book, House of Earth and Blood, Crescent City. It's supposed to be a new series. I believe it is adult, and I know it's supposed to be high fantasy, and it's going to be a long read, and I hope I enjoy it. I'm not really sure what it's about, but we shall see. Next we have Master of One. This is a young adult high fantasy that has beautiful sprayed edges, but wow, this is a big, long book. So this is about a 2-bit thief who is captured by, I guess, the queen and her sorcerer, and then he is forced to go find some crazy relic, and it turns out the relic or relics turn out to be some kind of magical people. So he's searching for these magical people, I guess. That's all I know. If you know more, let me know. Next we have 9. I believe this is young adult, and it's literally, I guess, about a universe where everybody has 9 lives, and every time you die or use up one of your lives, you become better in some way. So you want to use up your lives, but I guess not all of them. We shall see. We shall see. Next we have The Court of Thorn and Roses, and yes, I'm the one person who's not even started this series yet. All I know is that it's a series, but the first one's sort of a Beauty and the Beast retelling. I believe it's young adult. I don't know. You guys let me know. Next we have The Cousins by Karen McManus. This is her latest one. She put out One of Us is Lying and a few other YA thrillers, and I have read this, and I talk about it in my YA wrap-up that you will see now up in the cards, and you'll see what I thought about it. But basically, it's about cousins who do not know each other because their grandmother basically banned all of her children from where she lives on this island, and none of the kids know why their mother banned them. And now the grandchildren have been invited to her house, and they're hoping this will reopen the doors and they'll find out what is going on. Next we have Legendborn. Basically the main character is Bree, and she's going into this kind of early college program at UNC, and she witnesses something magical, and these magical beings try to erase her memory, but she remembers what's happened, and then they kind of pull her into this magical society, and that's all I'm going to tell you. Next we have Sky Hunter by Marie Lu. I just started this book. It's pretty good. Our main character is Talon, and Talon cannot speak because her vocal cords have been so damaged. But in this world there is only one free country left because there's a country called Corinza or something that's basically brutally taking over every country, and they don't take prisoners. They turn people into these weird rapid ghost creatures, like monsters. And then the monsters actually help them win even more wars. It's really crazy. But our main character, Talon, is part of the Strikers, which is part of the military that is trying to fight these guys. And they take a mysterious prisoner in, and she thinks that this prisoner might actually be able to help them. And that's all I know, but like I said, so far it's really good. Next we have Star Daughter. I believed I picked this in the last Skittles TBR, and it's literally what it sounds like. There is a young girl who is half star and half human, and how that's possible, I don't know. But supposedly the stars or her mother start calling for her because her mother had to go back to being a star after she was born, and she lives with her father. And she has to hide who she is from everybody. So I've read like maybe the first chapter, and so far it's pretty good, but I'm not sure where exactly it's going. The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue. This is everywhere on BookTube. I believe I picked this 2 Skittle TBRs ago, and You probably already know exactly what it's about. It's about a woman who makes a deal with some kind of a devil, and it causes her to be able to have immortality, but nobody remembers her until after 400 years she meets somebody who does remember her. And that takes her on a journey, and you can see how much I've read. I'm almost done. I hope I enjoy it. Next we have Kingdom of the Wicked, which I've shown you guys in some of the earlier videos how beautiful this book was. This is the whole reason I picked up that Stalking the Jack the Ripper book. But this is about a set of twins who are witches, and their grandmother grows up telling them all these stories, but they never really take her too seriously until one of the twins ends up dead, and it looks like there's some kind of black magic, and then some kind of dark prince arrives trying to help her, the twin that survived, and the twin is trying to figure out, is he really trying to help her, or does he have like ulterior motives? And we go on a wild ride. Next we have The Future of Another Timeline. I believe I picked this in a Skittles TBR. This takes place in two timelines, 1982 and 2022, and in the 1982 timeline, some girl's at a concert with her friends, and she goes back to the car and finds her friend's abusive boyfriend dead in the car. And then in 2022, time travel is now possible, and there's a main character named Tess who's trying to go back in time and I guess solve problems or make problems not happen. I don't know. And how this has to do with the first girl in the car, I don't know, but I think I'm gonna have to read this soon for my Skittles TBR, so I'll be able to tell you then. Next we have Ash Lords. This is a YA kind of high fantasy, kind of reminds me of the Hunger Games. This is a Christmas present from Colton and Alyssa. I have read it and I will be talking about it in my next Skittles TBR, but it is literally, it's kind of like the Hunger Games where you have people coming from all over the land, some that are very privileged, some who live in like the really poor places, and they have these things called phoenix horses, which literally are horses that need the sunlight to survive, and then when it gets dark you have to, I guess, burn them or they turn into ashes. I don't know, but you can use alchemy to make your horse better when it comes back to life, and it's a big race, and there's also talk of a revolution, so I'll tell you even more when we get to the next Skittles TBR. Next we have The Once and Future Witches. This was in my last Skittles TBR. I picked it because I thought I needed a 6-word title book, and I picked it, and then I realized after I posted the video that this only has 5 words, so I will not be reading this for the last TBR. But what I know from the synopsis is, I guess witchcraft is kind of gone. And there's these sisters who live in New Salem, and it's set, I guess, in the 1920s when there's the women's suffrage movement, and somehow this like pushes these girls to kind of get into witchcraft and bring it back. So we have the once, I guess that's how we have the Once and Future Witches. Next we have They Wish They Were Us. It's about a girl named Jill who's in this kind of secret society at her very elite private school that kind of gets her ahead, you know, with like test questions and answers and things like that. And I guess when she was a freshman, her best friend was killed during the initiation into this secret society, and now that she's a senior, there's new things coming out that make her realize that maybe the person who confessed didn't actually kill her. Next we have These Vengeful Hearts. I talked about this in my YA wrap-up. This is about a school where they have something called the Red Court. It is another book about a school with a secret society, and basically the Red Court tells people what they have to do, and they influence who might win the homecoming queen, or you can set it up so that they will do something bad to like your ex-boyfriend, but if they do something for you, then you owe them and you might have to do something really bad yourself. And Ember, the main character, believes her sister is paralyzed from the waist down because the Red Court did something to her, and now she wants to infiltrate this Red Court and bring it down. Next we have Chain of Gold. This is the first book in a new trilogy. I believe the second book is coming out in the next month or so. But I think it's about the descendants from the characters from the Clockwork trilogy and what happens to them as they are shadow hunters. It's a big book. Next we have Crown Chasers. This is a YA space book about a girl who her uncle is the emperor of the galaxy, and he's dying, and she does not want to be next in line, but he decides he's going to do something that they did hundreds of years ago, and it's called a crown chase. It's basically a scavenger hunt that happens in outer space, and so all the important big families in the galaxy choose a young person to participate, and then whoever wins is supposedly going to be the heir and take over being the emperor or empress of the galaxy. Next we have The Ravens. I talked about this in my all YA wrap up. This is about a sorority that is actually a coven of witches. We have two main characters, one who didn't even know she was a witch. She's a freshman and she's just been taken in by this sorority, and then one of them is a senior, and she's always known she was a witch, and she has this legacy that she's supposed to keep because I guess all the women in her family were president of the sorority, so she has a lot of pressure on her, and these two end up not liking each other so much. Next we have Instant Karma by Marissa Myers. This is her latest book. She wrote Renegades and the Lunar Chronicles. And in this book, our main character gets the ability to cause people to have instant karma. So if she sees them doing something horrible, she can kind of just in some way make them have something bad happen back to them. But for some reason, her powers don't work on the person she likes the least, who just seems like a horrible person. And I guess we're going to find out why this instant karma power doesn't work on him. Next, we have The Darkness. This is what I am reading for the Diversathon 2021's January book, which is you pick a book that is set in Iceland. It's about a cop who's basically being forced into retirement. But they're saying, hey, you can look at a cold case for the rest of the time you're here as, I guess, a gift. And she has the perfect cold case she wants to look into. There was a woman who washed up on a beach like many years ago, and it was never solved, obviously, because it's a cold case. And now she realizes the cops who investigated really didn't do a good job, and she thinks that she's going to be able to solve it. So, The Darkness. So this was my last book. The next video will be my Reese Witherspoon book club, and I'm also going to talk about all the books in some of the other celebrity book clubs. What are they picking, to start the year off with? That'll be next week. And then after that, I guess we'll be doing our Skittles TBR for February. So thanks for watching. I'll check you out later. Bye.